Welcome to part five, the final part in this series on the dynamics of the year YiSi, the wood snake. And what started off as a simple invitation blew out to quite an extensive study guide, I guess, an introduction to stems and branches. And as I said in the first video, I am not in any way a teacher. I'm here as a student and learning. And getting as much insight as I possibly can. And I got heaps of insight out of putting these slides together. Fundamentally, this was to introduce you to the 12 Earthly Branches Medical I Ching study group, and of course to invite you to participate at any level, whether you're student, practitioner or teacher. All are welcome. We are studying together to hopefully bring our treatment approaches in alignment with a person's constitutional energy. At the end of this video, I'll give you some info of how you can join the group if you're willing. However, you have approximately 4 hours of videos from this series which you can study, and hopefully it will bring you some level of insight. Okay, so shall we begin then? Safeguarding the Constitution to begin with. So just as a reminder, the constitutional chi, the innate chi of a person is classified by their year, stem and branch. And each year stem has a stem point. So in the first one, the Jia, gallbladder in earth, the stem point is gallbladder 34, being the earth point. As for liver, this year, 2025, Yi, liver in metal, liver 4 is the stem point. And it goes through all of the stems in that way. A quick guide to the year ending. So anyone born with a year ending in 4 is in the Jia gallbladder stem, providing that they're on the other side of the new year. And we're advised to avoid needling the year, stem and branch meridians. So for example, if you're born in the Gongzi year, so large intestine in metal stem, gallbladder branch, then you avoid the large intestine and gallbladder channels. And you might want to consider the liver, lung and heart channels as unlike and like chi meridians for the Gongzi. Same with the YiSi, avoid the liver and spleen, consider large intestine, gallbladder, sanjiao, stomach. Or born in the Wu year, I love that one. Avoid the stomach and heart channels and consider kidney, spleen, gallbladder and small intestine. So a lot of people, especially practitioners that I've talked to over the years, have no awareness of the constitutional chi and safeguarding that. So hopefully this will bring some consideration into your future treatments. So let's look at the Yi then, liver in metal. So its unlike chi is Gung, large intestine in metal, and its like chi is Jia, gallbladder in earth. So Yi, liver in metal, interaction. In the first video of this series, I gave you some links to videos put out by Jan Devine, supported by Hun and Regina. I would definitely look at the trauma one and the metal one for studying more on the Yi liver in metal. But basically, the great movement metal manages the continuous movements that take place between the inner and outer worlds. So again, like that rooting process and sprouting process, the duality. People respond to information received by the senses, digest the just eaten food, process in the air in the lungs and so on. The great movement metal is the intrinsic part in all of these processes. It means that interaction between people and the environment comes under pressure in the event of distortion in the great movement metal. And Jan classifies the first 3 stems, Jia, gallbladder in earth, Yi, liver in metal, and Bing, small intestine in water, as fundamental to the process of dealing with trauma. Gung, the active great movement metal, protects against external pathogens pathogenic or excessive incidents by utilizing information received from the senses and YiQi. It distinguishes information into good and bad, pathogenic and healthy. It functions by strengthening the inside and defending the body externally against outside invaders by activating the Shui, Yin Yi, Qi, and Wei Qi. Gung is also the stem that's related to introspection. Yi, the passive yin great movement metal, is responsive and focuses on the inner support of the body. It supports the structure of the vital elements of the body, such as the bones and fascia, and ensures their healthy functioning, supported by the hereditary and acquired qi. The way people function in the field of dynamic dualities is strongly determined by the function of the great movement metal. This means that when dualities are addressed, the great movement metal should always be included as the interactive resource connecting them. So we can look at a few ways. Well, the first way I want to look at actually is what Johan calls short and long-term solutions. And this is not from the classics, as he says, but it's derived from his, I'm not sure if it's 40 plus years of treatments and observations. And he's put together short-term solutions, which are basically things that relieve us instantly of our stresses, but in the long term lead to a decline. So if we look at modifying behaviors, so when one is completely free from wishes, ambition, and distracting thoughts, indifferent to fame and gain, the true Qi will come in the wake of it. When one concentrates his spirit internally and keeps a sound mind, how can illness occur? So concentration of the spirit internally is determined by the power of the emanation Li, the West, the seven Po and the great movement metal. They govern the interaction between people and the surrounding world, by which people may manage the way of keeping good health and true Qi. And points that treat the Po, UB42 and supported by 43, lung 1, 2, 3, 7, 9, UB13 and liver 4. When the great movement metal is weakened, it leads to symptoms and diseases due to lack of structures. Physically, in bone structures and joints, blood cells and organs, may lead to a lack of strength, fatigue, weak muscle nutrition, weakened Wei Qi, arthritis, blood cell malformation, and cardiac arrhythmias. And figuratively, in behavior and emotions, nervousness in groups, overcompensation for deep fear, and strong feelings of commitment. So when metal is passive, fire becomes active. With the passive great movement metal, diseases, signs, and symptoms usually refer more to active fire than deficient metal. Active great movement fire symptoms can be found in the heart, small intestine, Sanjiao, pericardium, and in all the qi that is influenced by fire, such as spleen qi, rising qi, heat, increase of physiological processes, behavior, memory, relationships, and so on. People born with a passive great movement metal are therefore faced with the challenge to calm down their fire on all aspects. To relax and to calm the speed of life is in general the main challenge for people affected by an active great movement fire. Calming applies in the first place to thinking, which never seems to stop. And you'll notice just little forgot the word for it, but in the bottom corner, we've got Johan Devine, page 146. So all of this is out of Johan's book, and much, much more, but I've just got a few key parts to bring to your attention. So a characteristic consequence of overactive great movement fire is a repeated feeling of frustration from the constant, active, demanding mind and an inability to be in the moment. Sensory distractions are sought out, such as binging on Netflix, sports, drugs and alcohol, sex, parties, and an extreme focus on study or teaching. Maybe one of mine. It helps to practice awareness exercises. So what are the short-term solutions for fire then? So these, like I said, they perpetuate the pattern but give short-term comfort. So a need for confirmation by opinions, belief systems, concepts, and ideals. Feels unmotivated, frustrated, and dissatisfied. They make up for a lack of stimulating experiences by expressing frustrations and dissatisfaction. There may also be a tendency to be constantly active and have a busy schedule. Lack of awareness of the importance of the practical, realistic side of life may make people feel isolated. This feeling can be offset by self-pity, excessive rationalization, and/or a tendency to carry out practical things to perfection. And because the head requires more attention than the heart, people especially desire heart-to-heart connections. People can appear cold and rational to one person, while they are described as warm and sensitive by another. So as we said before in the previous videos, when metal is passive, then its child water will come to its aid and try to suppress the dominance of fire. So we could also look at the short-term water compensatory solutions. So here we have a tendency to be opinionated and individualistic. This may lead to dogmatism and being overly critical. Tendency to be perfect and determined, seeking short-term solutions in general, obsessively wanting to find deep meaning and understanding, compensates for fear and insecurity and may become greedy and possessive, and a tendency to be dependent on sexual desires and confirmation. So if we add to this the short-term mental compensatory solutions, which is want to talk a lot, to show off, ask a lot of questions, meet lots of people, need a lot of money, material things, as in gathering and collecting, the nature of the West, concentrated on the future, dogmatic, greed. Professions have to do with gathering material or data, which allow them to integrate the outside inside. And I'm not sure that's in the short-term solutions, but I actually consider that might be a long-term attribute of metal as well, and a need for justification. So they're too concentrated on their own inside, physical powers, analysis, thinking, and the future. So to generate long-term well-being, then we look at the long-term compensatory solutions. And here YiSi says for metal, there are two approaches, one more physical, the other more personal, social. So to maintain health by providing physical strength and structure to the body through regular exercises and fresh air. Without that, there's a tendency to get stiff and tired. And people can learn to focus on adequately fulfilling their needs without being over the top. They can find a balanced way to communicate with the outside world while still nourishing the inner world, alternating outward behavior and presence with time for introspection. To balance the fire long term, the integrated metal form of Shen, and here YiSi says Shen is hard to translate but equates to what is known as spirit, but not in a religious sense. And the great movement of fire facilitate observation in silence with a peaceful mind. Creativity happens from freedom and is based on intuition and intelligence of the heart rather than the intellect of the mind. And people born in the heavenly stem Yi, liver in metal, tend to deficiency in the gallbladder, overactivity of the fire element, and as a consequence, the water element, the power of the will, tries to subdue fire by means of the short-term compensations of water mentioned above. So the water compensatory solutions. And here YiSi says that the long-term solutions are not so easy. There is a danger that confirmation leads people to consider themselves knowledgeable and wise. In the end, this belief stagnates the chi and blood more than it gives freedom. It suppresses further inner cultivation. It may also get in the way of a balanced sexual experience, but moreover, it often leads to quite serious symptoms and illnesses because one is unaware of the situation that stagnates the flow of essence, Ching. Unfortunately, the severity of diseases seems to be the only way to surrender the inflated ego. So things to adopt, accept things as they are without struggles, desires, or competition. No vanity, selfless, silent obedience. Belonging, upright, veracity and truthfulness, and cultivate authenticity. And points to consider. So a healthy functioning Yi liver is dependent on a healthy functioning Jia gallbladder. So the first to the second stem. Gallbladder, the light Qi, and large intestine, unlike Qi, tend towards deficiency. They can be used to support Yi liver, especially when someone is born in that stem. Excuse me. People born in Yi liver in metal regularly seek balance by meeting other people or being active outwardly rather than cultivating their inner selves. So any points on the large intestine and gallbladder channels? Liver 4, the stem point, providing you're not born in the Yi stem. Lung 3 and pericardium 6. Stomach 25, spleen 15, 21 and 8. And points that treat the Po, as we talked about before. And again, in his videos, Johan talks about all these points. He talks about stomach 25, spleen 15, 21 in the chapter on the Yuan Hongli Jun. He also talks about those in, I can't remember what video that is. No, I've lost that one. Anyway, there's a few points to consider. So let's look at now the branch. So for the Northern Hemisphere, you're the Yin branch, the Yang wood, and the Tiger animal. So its seasonal point is lung 11, the Jingwell and the wood point. And Jingwell points are appropriate for springtime. And of course, as we're just not too far away from the full moon now, so we're coming up to 14 days since the new moon. So we're well into or halfway through this month. And the Qi obviously begins around the new moon at lung 11. And well, you could say it could alternatively, if you use the 5 Wushu points, then we're beginning at lung 11 and moving up to lung 5. But if you follow the channel trajectory, then the beginning of the month starts at lung 1 and moves through to lung 11. So you can utilize the lung channel in any way, especially depending on Ushu points. It's also worth considering the preceding branch, which is Chou liver in earth. And we'll look at a moment at the essential nature of the liver supporting the lung. And the succeeding branch, which is male large intestine in wood, which is when we talk about unfolding Qi, which I did in the last video, the Qi of the gallbladder in midwinter, midnight, 11 p.m. to 1 a.m., and the tidal hexagram of number 24, return, is the thunder trigram, one yang line and 2 yin lines above, underneath the earth trigram. So we have 1 yang line on the bottom, 5 yin above. And that unfolds into the male branch. So the lower trigram, Jun Thunder, comes from the base in the gallbladder to the upper trigram in the male branch. So we have a direct connection there. What was in the seed is now coming to exuberance in the exuberant branch of wood in the male large intestine. So that can also be used and considered when supporting the lung. Tidal hexagram is number 11, advance or peace. And the unlight Qi is the Shen urinary bladder, or the light Qi, the male large intestine. So the lung channel emerges from both the harmonizing chi of the earth qualities of Ren 12 and the earthly branch Chou liver. So if you go into the metal video that Johan's made, he talks about the 7 Po, and when he talks about the first Po, he'll talk about how the the activation at birth centers itself in Ren 12. So definitely worth watching that one. A supportive arm around the shoulder, words of comfort, finding a quiet and peaceful place in the self are expressions of support for the balanced pivot earth space of the earthly branch Chou. It is the ground on which the lung channel rests. So it's advised to ensure the diaphragm is relaxed, access the quality of the area Ren2 to Ren8, so palpation of those areas. It does encourage massage of the middle jiao to restore function in the lower jiao if there's a disharmony in the areas Ren2 to 8. Suggests that liver 3, being the earth point on the liver, can be quite beneficial. And he's got lungs 11, caution with sedation, as it also sedates the wood quality of the lung and thus the vitalizing influence of the earthly branch yin lung in wood. Also talks that lung 1, which is the metal point, if the pulse is excessively tight in the large intestine, almost to the point where it cannot be felt, Johan says that sedation may assist in this process. And what you're looking at, I guess, with directional needling in the flow from large intestine 1 and checking the pulse after that needling to see if the pulse comes up nicely. So there are many, many ways, of course, to treat, and you have to utilize your own skills and prior knowledge in this area. But one area what I wanted to focus on, where Johan says, in practice, in cases of insufficiency of the lung qi and reduced strength of wei qi, the lung qi should be treated indirectly by restoring the balance between deep qi, water, and fire. And here he classifies that as the axis of spleen with the heaven trigram and Sanjiao with the heaven hexagram with Sanjiao and the earth hexagram. So as I love balance method, I've put together a little bit of information here on how we can utilize a couple of global balance patterns that can deal with this water fire excess. So we have the spleen Sanjiao and pericardium stomach. So here we're coming back to 2 earth branches. So we're helping transitional movement here. Pericardium Sanjiao are meridians that are activated at birth. So in some ways, this Sanjiao, pericardium, stomach, spleen, global balance is more to do with postnatal Jing. Whereas the Sanjiao, spleen, heart, gallbladder, we're bringing in prenatal aspects as well. Here's a few examples. We can look at meridian conversion. Meridian conversion is particularly useful when there's a Shen disturbance, and spleen, Sanjiao, gallbladder, heart are useful also in hormonal imbalances, where there's heat aspects in the upper and too much damp in the lower, and where there's insomnia. And this one's a 3-6 combination. If you're not sure what 3-6 is, or what even meridian conversion is, that's where we convert one primary hexagram. The primary hexagrams are when the upper and lower trigrams are the same. So there's 8 of those in the I Ching, and each one of those relates to a meridian. So here we can see this hexagram above, which is lake over lake, 2 yang lines, 1 yin, 2 yang lines, 1 yin. When you convert that to this hexagram, needling of the 3rd line and the 6th line which are the points heart 7, heart 3, will create this hexagram. And conversely, needling 41 and 34, the third and sixth points on the gallbladder meridian, it will convert to this. Over here, we've got a 1-4 conversion pattern. So where the first and the fourth lines are needled. So this will make a yin line, which equates to the Sanjiao primary hexagram. And conversely, needling 1 and 4 here create the fire over fire, which is this one. And we can see another example here. This one's all 1-4, which I'm pretty sure you can see that and work that out. If you've not done anything around conversions or global balance, this is probably just nonsense, nonsense to you. And if you previously downloaded the 81 charts, there's information in there on how to look at the developing meridian conversions, what is global balance. And there's also in the free aspect in the study portal, there's a introduction to I Ching and balance method as well. So there's plenty of resources to look at. Here's just an example, treatment example. So a lady, 18th of July 1960. Because she's born in the southern hemisphere, she's pre the new year, so she comes back to the previous stem, which is a year ending in 9, so 59. So her stem is G, spleen in earth, and the year branch is high, Sanjiao in water. So we avoid those channels as much as possible. She presented with osteoarthritis, osteoporosis, allergies, and sleep disturbance. She's been coming to see me on and off for probably nearly a year now, and she's just currently in the process of ending a 35-year relationship, which is an interesting evaluation on working constitutionally. It's not always the rapid symptom reduction as seen in pure balance method, but it does bring about quite significant changes in the way people interact in their lives. And like this lady said, she's 20 years ago she knew that she should have been out of this relationship, and I feel that the treatments have helped contribute to her ability to make that decision. So the pulse was surface, thin on the Sun Guan positions, deep and strong, in alignment with that, particularly in the guans, and tight on the pericardium. She's got a low-level allergic response, feels in the throat, eyes and ears, worse in the morning and on going to bed. She's got sleep disturbance, although much improved. Bowel every second day, stiff neck, lips dry and red. Doesn't like the cold. She is thirsty, but she's noticed cold water makes her breathing more difficult. The date of the treatment was 1st of February 2025, which was 3 days from the new moon. So 29th of January was the new year, but it actually didn't switch in till the 3rd of February. But anyway, the day was a Shen lung stem and a Chou liver branch day. Time of appointment was 10. And we'll look shortly at some timing ways that you can incorporate timing in your decisions. So this conversion utilizes the exchange timing as we're moving from the Y branch, the small intestine, into the urinary bladder, both Tai Yang, and also the liver transitional earth branch from winter into the beginning of spring in lung. So we've used these dynamic dualities in a meridian conversion pattern. And I can't give you feedback on how that was because I won't be seeing her till next week. So in the southern hemisphere, we are in the Shen, yang metal of the monkey. Here the seasonal point is 67, Jing metal point. Its preceding branch is the Wei, liver in earth, whose seasonal point is small intestine 8. And there is a contraindication to read up on that on page 318. And the succeeding branch, the kidney in metal, seasonal point, kidney 7, tidal hexagram number 12, hindrance, unlike Qi yin lung and like Qi Shen urinary bladder. So Yarn talks about the sensitivity and responsiveness of the previous earthly branches have developed further in the earthly branch Shen as intuition. The experience of intuition is a realization of an inner light. It is congruent to the time when the life forces turn in and illuminate the core. So when we're looking at the birth branch of autumn, so the moving into the Yang Ming, the start of the Yang Ming resolution time, the Yang Ming Qi, that congruent to the time when we're moving inwards, going downwards, descending. I love the way that Johan puts that to illuminating the core. Intuition opens up to the virtues of heaven. And of course, we got heaven above here. Such as compassion, justice, and universal moral principles. Justice and moral principles can be seen again in that metal quality. These qualities may manifest when people can let go of ego issues, so earth here, and find the freedom to be authentic, accessing the courage to face their fears so that they regain an open connection to the internal heaven. Bearing in mind as well that the metal contains the 7 Po, connected to the 7 senses, the 5 Shen, and the 7 emotions. Proper treatments of the earthly branch Shen urinary bladder and the process of conscious inner intuitive awakening can at first evoke emotions. The burden of past experiences covering the source of intuition might initially feel overwhelming and difficult to process. This may initially cause additional solidification of emotions, sadness, fear, despair, and so on, that need to be liberated first. And it's better not to talk during Shen urinary bladder treatments because silence and stillness and the simple act of breathing might lead to new insights all by themselves. So people who suffer from complaints related to the urinary bladder channel, such as slip disc with pain on the dorsal side of the leg, or have neck and headaches and so on, are often victims of unempathetic behaviour from others or from themselves. Challenges for those born in Shen urinary bladder often require making difficult choices. A good sense of humour is indispensable to deal with these hardships. The path to intuition starts off with being still and turning inward, and this condition of release can also be achieved by workouts and long walks, remembering the long-term solutions for metal involve on one path physical activity. So the seasonal point urinary bladder 67, Johan talks about in conjunction with Dew 9, governing vessel 9. But it says UB67 marks the end of yang in the urinary bladder qi and the beginning of yin in the kidney qi. Water or kidney qi is sluggish and without momentum or purpose, often accompanied by pain in the neck and head or other types of stagnation in the upper burner area. And Dew 9 indicates fullness of yin and emptiness of yang, such as fullness in the chest, diaphragm, stomach with pain in the chest and back, together with aching shins and tired legs, asthenia with feelings of discouragement. And treatment of urinary bladder 67 opens a yin source that generates dynamic, intuitive change. All right, we're going to move on to timing. And like I said, there are many ways to approach. This is just some of what Johan's talked about in his Applying Stems and Branches book. Stuff that I'm interested in learning. That's where I'm moving on from here. So in the timing aspect, I'm bringing in, and these next few slides, although I haven't got a confirmation where it's come from in these first few, but this has come from Classical Chinese Medicine by Lu Hong. And he talks about acute illnesses. The course of disease lasts just several days, and so we should consider the period in which the disease will tend to ameliorate or resolve in terms of the course of a single day. So in terms of branches, so from yin to chen, so lung, large intestine, stomach, 3 a.m. to 9 a.m., Xiaoyang disorders tend to ameliorate. Si to wei, spleen, heart, and small intestine, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., Taiyang improves. Shen to Shu, urinary bladder, kidney, pericardium, time of Yang Ming. Sanjiao, gallbladder and liver, the winter time, Tai Yin benefits. And you'll notice here the crossover for the yin ones. So all of the Xiaoyang, Taiyang, Yang Ming have their own resolution times, but when we come to the 3 yin, they share resolution times. So the overlap for Xiaoyin with Tai is 11 p.m. to 3 a.m., but and the overlap for Chou to Mao, the Jui yin, here we have 1 a.m. to 3 a.m. So that time period, 9, 11, and then 1 a.m., and then finishing on 3. All of the 3 yin are involved in that. Basically, we're saying that in the time of the day or the time of the month or the time of the year, the 6 conformations have a tendency to improve when their qi is strongest. If the disease is chronic, then lasting more than a month or 2 or even a year or 2, and furthermore exhibits no clear pattern of change through the course of the day or is irregular, then we should look for a pattern of amelioration within the course of the month or even the course of the year. So in the course of the year, Taiyang is summer, Xiaoyang spring, Yangming autumn, and the 3 yin winter. In the time of the month, we're looking at the days within the 28-day cycle. And of course, within the 3 yin, there's an overlap again. If we look at this in a graphic, so we've got new moon down the bottom. So the last new moon was 29th of January. So we can look at Tai Yin, the 7.5 days around the new moon, which connects also to the 9 p.m. to 3 a.m. Xiaoyin is 7.5 days from the new moon to the first quarter, and Jueyin 7.5 days beginning on the 3rd day of the lunar month. So if you look at the lunar month of the 29th, 30th, 31st, then the 1st of February was the 3rd day. So 7.5 days takes us up to 8.5 days. So we're out of that time period now, and we're into the Xiaoyang time period, which is 7.5 days around the first quarter. So I hope that makes some sense to you. And this is a summary table from the Suwen chapter 22. I first came across this when I was doing Genevieve Le Goff's Circle of Life training, which I recommend to anybody. She's a fabulous teacher. But here we can see that disease healed, gets serious. We've got the summer, autumn, and then the days, Bing and Ding days. Yeah, so the year and the days more related to the stems, the month and the hour more related to the branches. And then we can also see there on a daily basis gets better at dawn. So this is wood. Wood and spring gets better at dawn because the wood chi, spring chi is beginning there. Becomes serious in the late afternoon because it's metal, Yang Ming time. Metal controls wood. Calms down at midnight. I guess that's the Jui Yin association there. And also the beginning of the growth. So all of the elements have these qualities as well. There's another aspect that Lu Liang talks about, the importance of 3. we'll just look at, we haven't looked at all at the big cycle actually. So I'm not going to go into that now, but the small cycle, we can look at that on a daily basis. But, uh, also in the month's time, so when the wood spring energy is available, but also in the 3 months of the year. And he says the concept of three unities is extremely important. The implications of these unities of three are many. For instance, in clinic, we can speak of water being deficient or fire deficient, but we may hesitate to tonify the patient's water or fire. As soon as we tonify water, the patient's spleen and stomach suffer. As soon as we rebuild the patient's fire, they may suffer from mouth sores. The reason for these thwarted efforts may lie in the time at which the effort to tonify is undertaken. If we keep the 3 2-hour time periods and their pertinent element in mind, I do not believe that we will encounter this problem. So this is something that I've been looking at. I think it's a very interesting concept. So if we look at the wood times, we have 9 to 11 p.m. So here we're bringing in the high Sanjiao branch, 5 to 7 a.m. the male branch, and 1 to 3 p.m. The Wei branch. So these are all times during the day where if we want to apply this principle of three, that we may book our clients in order to give them a tonification. And in the next slide, I'll give you an example of a roundabout way of looking at this. That reminds me of a story where I was talking to my teacher once and asking him about my practice style, and he said, "Well, your practice style is nothing wrong with it." He said, and he said, "But it's like this." He said, "I scratch my nose by putting my finger on my nose and scratching it," which was a direct one. And then he wrapped his arm around his head and scratched his nose again, and he said, "And that's your style." So I kind of maybe don't have a direct approach, but I attempt to encompass all aspects, which in some cases is good and some cases not. Anyway, here we have another lady, 28th of July 1981. So again, it's Southern Hemisphere, born before the new year, so she's in the previous stem, which is Gung large intestine in metal, and our year branch is Shen, urinary bladder in metal. So plenty of metal. In the last maybe 6 months or so, she's developed a very red nose. This picture doesn't show its redness enough, but the whole tip and front of the nose, nostrils included, red and inflamed, and sometimes breaks out in pusses. It throbs, or it used to. Lots of sneezing. She also has history of eczema and asthma, grinding teeth, and extreme fatigue. And she's just completed 4 years of IVF with no pregnancy from that at all, and was given a diagnosis of endometriosis. She does suffer premenstrual syndrome, emotionally for a few days prior, and then back, abdo, and hip pain, which can last up to about the second day. Menses are generally heavy to start. They are regular, but can go from 5 to 7 days. On the pulse, the right sun is on the lung position, is only on the distal position on the foe. But as soon as you do needling, that shifts. The guan's quite deep and strong on the spleen, and very weak and deep on the pericard. The left is all deep pulses, short on both sides, weak, and especially the kidney. The treatment day was 8th of February, which was Wu, stomach, and Shen, urinary bladder branch. We're 10 days after the new moon, so we're just in that Zhuai Yin sharing resolution stage. treatment time was 2:30 in the afternoon, which is basically wood coming into water tonification. If we just skip back a couple of slides, or a slide, so we can see here wood tonification 1 to 3 p.m., water tonification 3 to 5 p.m. So that 2:30 window is the tide of the wood moving into water. I chose spleen, Sanjiao, pericard, stomach in a meridian conversion or tidal hexagram conversion pattern. So if you, let me just skip to the next slide. So this is from the 81, one of the slides from the 81 charts. One thing that I've been practicing for quite a while, when I feel it's appropriate, is looking up the day stem. So Wu, stomach and fire, the stem trigram, which in this sequence is Gung Mountain, and then going to the Shen urinary bladder branch, coming along and looking at that trigram, which is Earth. You can also utilize the tidal hexagram if it's appropriate. And it also interesting to note that Xiaoyang and Zhuoyin are the LiuQi for the Shen branch. So what I did incorporating those two is combine the two trigrams to make these two hexagrams. So this is hexagram 23, falling apart, connects to the pericardium branch, and this is number 15, humility. It's not a tidal hexagram, but it's still utilizing these two trigrams. So there's a lot of earth focus here. And with the pericardium meridian, utilizing the Chou point, the earth Chou stream point, Yuan point, I've gone for the oppositional hexagram of falling apart to eliminating, which is the stomach tidal hexagram. So here we just have to needle pericardium 7 to create this hexagram. Here we needle Sanjiao 3 to create mountain over mountain, which is its primary Sanjiao primary hexagram. It's also small intestines. Liver 8 is needled. The liver primary hexagram is all 6 yin lines. So when you needle liver 8, you create this shape. Spleen 1, 4, and 9. So it's a little bit more points involved in this. The spleen primary hexagram is fire over fire. The fire trigram is 1 yang line, 1 yin line in the middle, 1 yang line on top. So when we needle the lower line, we create a yang line, so we get the fire trigram. And then when we needle spleen 4 and spleen 9, we get fire trigram above. Same for stomach 44, 43, 41, whose primary hexagram is water over water, which would be yin, yang, yin, yin, yang, yin. So we needle 44 to create a yang line, 43 to make a yin line, and then 41 to make a yang line. And again, this lady I haven't seen since this appointment, so I cannot give you feedback on the response to that as yet. But this is just a way of utilizing balance method with the philosophy of stems and branches and medical I Ching. And for my friends in the Southern Hemisphere, as we don't come out of this new year until late July, early August, is on this, which I've talked about before, and a lovely blog page, I think, describing this year's WuYun LiuQi. Is a yearly formula that's been described for that. I don't know where these formulas come from. If anybody knows, please let me know, which is why I can't give you one for 2025. But this is the formula. So we got Fuling, Mugua, Fuzi, Nutsi, Fangfang, Herzi, Gansao, and Ganjiang. I think the advice is to grind into powder and probably take as a draft, I would think. And if you go to that blog page, you'll also find modifications for each month, which is another great learning tool for herbs. And that's the end of this presentation on the dynamics of YiSi, 2025 year of the wood snake. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you get something out of it. Please provide me with some insights and feedback on the presentations. I know I tend to go into lots and lots of detail, but if hopefully the detail by the end of it will give some deepening of what you already know, an opening to a new pathway of exploration and learning. Or potentially, if you're very well versed in this subject, it may point out things that I don't know and things that I've got misguided on. So please feedback on that as well would be awesome. And I'd just like to conclude this with two possible ways that you can join in with this study. Their membership and mentorship. Although mentorship, I'll explain in a moment, is a little bit different. Here's the dates of the upcoming live meetings. So we've got Australasia and Europe. These are done on a Sunday, and it's 6:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time, which equates to 7:30 a.m. in London, Greenwich Mean Time. The dates March 2nd and 30th, April 27th, May 25th, June 22nd, and July 20th. And they're always on a Sunday closest to the new moon. And I've decided to put in an extra meeting to incorporate the USA and Canadian time zones. So this will be on at 10 o'clock a.m. on a Monday, which equates to 6 p.m. Sunday evening in New York. And the same dates for New York, but the day after for us in Australasia. Membership gives you access to the study portal where all the videos, PowerPoints, Word docs, etc., are stored, which I've talked about before. We have subcategories on WuYun LiuQi, medical I Ching, following daily flow, balance method, and seasonal balance, and our online live interactive virtual education sessions, which equates to 3 days basically of training a year or meetings a year. And then we also have our private face group. There is a sliding scale. 1,800 is the value I put on the year's membership, but there are 5 different options that go down to $300. It does take an awful lot of work to keep this updated, and quite a bit of expense as well. So this is why I'm asking people to donate something towards that. If it's still beyond your budget, because I know a lot of practitioners are coming from areas where their financial status is far lower than Australia, and you want to join in, then just give me a contact and we'll sort something out. So if you wish to join in for that, just click on the link below. For mentorship, and mentorship is an attitude towards study, and it's how we approach, how we study, we prepare, so that when the teacher appears, we're ready. So there's quite a lot of talk in Yang Jin Hai's Yellow Emperor's Inner Transmission of Acupuncture on preparation for a teacher, and that's what I call mentorship. So part of this, you get full access to all the study material that we've just talked about in the membership. Plus we learn how to approach, and we put our focus on the observation and recording of the daily, monthly and yearly WuYun LiuQi. And this is an important way to fully access what is happening in the present, in your own environment, and not just from a textbook. And for me, that's invaluable learning. And we meet each week online for 2 hours over 40 weeks. which gives us a total mentorship hours per year, 104 hours, so which is basically 13 days, almost 2 weeks of study and practice together. And then once a month, we join with our friends in the membership group for our monthly lives, and hopefully bringing joy and inspiration to learning, bringing back the love of learning, which is an essential aspect of mentorship and approach for ourselves, our families, our friends, our communities, our world, and of course our clients. Membership is by application only, so you have to contact me directly for that. Either Facebook message me, email me on integralfreedom@gmail.com, or you can ring me on the Australian 61439672 This concludes the introduction to the 12 Earthly Branches Medical I Ching Study Group. Our dynamics of the YiSi year. So thank you for your interest, and may your year be blessed with good health, joy, and happiness. I'll see you hopefully in the group, but otherwise somewhere around the traps. Thanks very much, guys.